Hi there, my name is Ryan from Askreddit Tells, and today we're going to be looking at some of the top stories on r/ProRevenge. But before we do, make sure you're subscribed and hit that notification bell to stay up to date on all the latest videos. Me and Karen, a love story. Just kidding, Karen's a total bitch. But buckle up because here's my novel. My husband and I are in our late 30s and child-free. Some people in the child-free said I should post here too, so enjoy the saga. My husband and I have been saving up for almost a decade to move to a tropical paradise. About 2 years ago, we bit the bullet and moved to our dream location. Housing here is super expensive, like Hawaii prices, so all I could afford was half a duplex. It is beautiful and on the water with places for our boat. Unfortunately, Karen, Billy Bob, the boyfriend, and her 3 gremlins live in the other unit. Setup. There's some period of time we just went for a week here and there, but we live there full time now. The entire duplex was owned by an older gentleman who rented out both sides. The sides don't match at all. One side is a 5-bedroom, 3-bath, the other side is a duplex is a 2-bedroom, 1-bath. We got the 5-bedroom on our side of the property. We have 90% of the backyard, a gazebo, and dockage about 150 since it's on a corner. The other has a small backyard patio and maybe 15 of dockage. The rental leases say that the renters are entitled to specific backyards, but there were no fences or anything, so all the renters shared the entire backyard. After we bought the house, Karen immediately tried to throw her weight around and say that they expected to continue with that privilege. I told her that if she asked politely, we would try to accommodate her. She thought this meant she could use our backyard whenever she wanted. Party incident. One day, my husband and I are enjoying some drinks outside when a delivery truck shows up to sign a giant blow-up thing in our backyard. I asked Karen WTF she thought she was doing, and she said it was for her kid's birthday. Then she had the gall to say it was a family and friends only event, so we had to stay inside our house. Not wanting to be a total a-hole and ruin some little girl's birthday, I told Karen after this she had no access to our backyard. Period. Karen shrugged and kept setting up for the party. During the party, a drunk adult wandered into our house and shocked us all. I said Karen's house is on the other side, and he said, oh, Karen said she owned the whole property and used whichever bathroom was available. I directed him to Karen's bathroom, and soon after she came storming into our house, screaming about how dare we make her look bad in front of her friends, and how selfish we are, we couldn't even spare one bathroom. She said we didn't deserve all this space with just us. I told Karen to get the hell out of my house, or I would be calling the cops. She finally left and the party wrapped up shortly after. Backyard remodel. After the party incident, we decided we needed to clearly define the backyard and build a fence. While we were spending the money, we decided to update the patio and put in a fire pit and an outdoor kitchen. While the contractor was on site, Nosy Karen had to come investigate. Since the fence would be the last thing built, I was vague and just stuck to telling her about the patio update. You could see her face light up because the course in her mind. What's ours is hers. When the workers started on the fence, Karen came out screaming for the work to stop. I went outside and told the workers to keep working and told Karen to butt out. Of course, Karen, in true Karen fashion, she called the cops. What happened next was hilarity on my part after explaining to the cop that we were building a fence on our property and the landlord, of which Karen was not, knew about it. When the cop gave Karen a stern lecture, I thought her head was going to explode. She went back into her house and slammed the sliding door so hard it sounded like something cracked. We got our fence and I thought that would be the end, but of course not. The boat incident. One day, Billy Bob entered the picture and he was as much terrible as neighbor as Karen. He would throw cigarette butts and empty beer cans over our fence for disrespecting his woman. I don't know Paradise had trailer trash, but Billy Bob is the epitome of the stereotype. Billy Bob has a boat, a 30 fishing boat to be precise. Of course, that side of the duplex has only 15 feet of dockage. Since we have so much dockage and only one boat, we rent out the other dockage spots as month to month. People come and go, so if we don't receive rent from them by the end of the month, then the boat disappears, we think nothing of it. We had a renter who tied up their boat on the property line, but Billy Bob wanted to park his boat and needed that space. Karen and Billy Bob posed as us. We were out of town, told the renters to be gone at the end of the month, and then parked Billy Bob's boat on the dockage. I only found out about it weeks later because the renter left a nasty review on the rental site we use. They said we're rude and went back on the verbal agreement to let them stay for 3 more months. I was like, what the F is all of this? After a phone call, I quickly put 2 and 2 together. I called the cops, who told Karen and Billy Bob they need to move their boat or it would be towed. The equivalent of it anyway. Karen and Billy Bob started screaming that the boat is fully on their property. It isn't. Then changed to no one can own the water. True, but the seawall is deeded that we are liars. And at some point, Billy Bob punched a cop and went to jail. I felt bad for the cops, so made them all snacks the next day with a note apologizing for the neighbor drama. I ended up winning my small claims suit against them for loss of rental income, but of course haven't seen a dime. I eventually convinced the dockage renters to come back and gave them a few months free as compensation. Final revenge? If you've made it this far, congratulations, get ready for a juicy justice boner. So with the collapsing market, we were trying to figure out what to do with our savings when a perfect opportunity opened up. The landlord, who owned both properties, was in desperate need of some cash and was tired of managing the property from 2,000 miles away. Because of course Karen is a Karen and called him weekly for every little thing, his only stipulation was we let the poor single mom who has been in his renter for 8 years finish her lease, which is up in July. Since we just have the money, we were trying to reinvest, and because now we get control of our neighbors, heck yeah, we jumped on it. Since we didn't need a realtor or mortgage and an inspection had been done in just a year ago, the old landlord for a refinance, everything closed in just under 2 weeks. Karen was aware of a change of ownership. We registered the property under an LLC, but didn't know who until 8 days ago. I went over to Karen's house and knocked on the door. Karen answered with a, "What the F do you want, cunt?" I smiled and handed her our landlord information and sweetly reminded her her rent was due by Friday, but she couldn't just hand me the check if that was easier. I've always heard their descriptions of people's faces turning white, but this was the first time I had actually seen it. I told Karen that we're honoring her lease until the end of July, but afterwards she had better make plans to move because we instead want to remodel it before these next tenants moved in. Bye, bitch. Edit. A lot of people misunderstood the beginning. Let's call our side of the duplex OP. The other duplex is Duplex Karen. We purchased Duplex OP. After we bought it, Duplex OP was no longer a rental. Both Duplex OP and Duplex Karen were for sale independently, but we only had the money to buy Duplex OP. Duplex Karen is still a rental because it has never sold. Now we own both Duplex OP and Duplex Karen. Duplex Karen is still a rental. Duplex OP is not a rental. When we make property investments to Duplex OP, it was ours and not a rental. Woman damages my mom's car and blames it on my mom. Her corrupt cop boyfriend covers it up and ruins both of their reputations. I don't know if this counts as pro-revenge or not, but I thought it was pretty funny and they got what they deserved. This post is super long, so I have a TLDR at the end. Now for some background. I live in a predominantly white suburban town in New Jersey and my family is Asian. Although the town is alright for the most part, it is not really a secret that some of the townspeople are pretty racist. One of our neighbors, let's call him Anthony, is a retired police captain from another town, but he is friends with my town's police chief. My mother's a first-generation immigrant, and although she's fluent in English, she still has a pretty thick Asian accent. A couple of years ago, my mom went to visit one of her friends on the other side of town. My mom had a parallel park directly in front of her and her friend's house, which is at the bottom of a small hill. As she's leaving, a woman driving a Jeep Wrangler with her children was driving down the small hill, but she was still a decent distance back. So my mom pulled out of her spot. The road they were on was really wide, enough for space to fit 5 cars next to one another, and about 40 feet ahead was a stop sign. My mom at this point was already in the middle of the road, fully out of the parking spot, and had gotten about 10 full wheel when the woman driving the Jeep suddenly it came up from behind my mom's car and directly in front of her, crossing a double yellow line to do so. Because of the angle she cut my mom off at, the Jeep's rear end ended up ripping off my mom's front bumper. My mom naturally immediately stopped and the woman got out of her car after straightening it out on the road. As soon as she stepped out of her car, this woman, we'll call her Karen, immediately starts cursing my mom out at the top of her lungs. Karen told my mom to call the police, but my mom told her that her phone had died. My mom's friend and her son, as well as the neighbors, came out of the house after hearing the commotion to see what happened. The neighbor, an elderly man, asked what happened, and Karen yelled, "Are you effing blind? An effing accident happened. Go call the police. I need to call my boyfriend." The son had taken a law class in college, so he offered to take a bunch of pictures on the scene of the accident and send them to my mom later. This becomes super important later. The neighbors call the police, but Karen's boyfriend decides at the scene first. When the cop, let's call him Kenny, finally arrives, he asks my mom what happened. Just as my mom started saying her side of the story, the cop says, "Wait just a minute," and walks over to the boyfriend. As it turns out, the boyfriend, we'll call him Sam, was a cop in town who was pretty popular with the kids. In the middle school, he would occasionally visit to talk about things like DARE and other things in assemblies. Sam was off duty at the time, so he was able to come over when Karen called him. As soon as Kenny saw his buddy Sam, he immediately went to go talk with him, rather than with my mom or Karen. They discussed for a little while, afterwards sent everyone on their way. My mom tried to talk to Kenny before he left, but Kenny just brushed it off and said he got the details he needed, but told my mom that he'd be able to get the police report in about a week or two. When my mom receives the police report, she saw that it said that she pulled out without using her blinkers and suddenly hit Karen's car. On top of that, Karen was expecting for my mom's insurance to pay for the damage done to her rear wheel. My mom went to my neighbor Anthony to ask what she should do about the report, since it was clearly wrong. Anthony was furious and told her that she should go to the police station and ask him to see the chief, and asked if there was any way to see that she should tell him because she wants to file an internal complaint. The day, my mom takes the photograph sent to her by the son and goes to the police station and asks the person working the front desk to see the chief. The cop says that he could not just walk in and ask for the chief. So my mom responds, "Okay, where should I go to file an internal complaint?" And the cop immediately straightens up and says, "Right here, come with me." He leads her into the back. The deputy chief steps into the room and started recording the conversation. Since the chief was out, my mom presented all of the evidence to him instead. After presenting the evidence to show that it was in fact Karen that hit her instead of the other way around, my mom also says that she'd like to file a corruption complaint against both Kenny and Sam. Kenny clearly did not do his job properly since he did not properly ask the actual people involved in the accident and did not even note the fact that there were 2 passengers in Karen's car in the report. Even Karen later admitted to an investigator that Kenny never once spoke to her. My mom even threw in the racist card for good measure, saying maybe Kenny wouldn't listen to her and brushed her off because of her thick Asian accent. Sam, meanwhile, had interfered with the investigation despite not being at the scene at the crime during the time of the accident. The deputy chief says he'll start an internal investigation and see if anything needs to be done. Meanwhile, my mom also filed a claim to her insurance and presented the evidence to them too, and her insurance decides since the accident, in their eyes, was clearly not her fault, they weren't going to pay Karen a penny and that they would contact Karen's insurance to pay my mom instead. A lot of internal bureaucratic investigation BS happens, including interviews with Karen, my mom's friend and the friend's neighbor. About a month passed and an officer comes to our house to tell us that Kenny had been punished, but there was not enough evidence to punish Sam, and he just wanted to know if there was any other concern she had. Since Karen seemingly had not done anything to further warrant any action and the damage to the car was paid for, my mom said that there was nothing else. This is the fun part. 3 days after the officer came to our door, a letter came in the mail for a court hearing. Turns out, Karen had decided to file 3 tickets about my mom in just 1 day before the statute of limitations. Apparently, in New Jersey, citizens are allowed to file complaints about other citizens breaking the law. A thing that happens in a family I'd never heard of before this happened. And because of how late she filed these complaints, by the time we received them in the mail, we could not even counter-complain, and the only options were to pay the fine or to go to court. We assumed that Karen learned about being able to file a complaint from Sam, because no shit, and the only reason she was willing to go this far is because she heard my mom had a super thick Asian accent, and assumed my mom wouldn't know what to do about the tickets and would just pay up. What she didn't count on is the fact that my mom's actually really aggressive with an absolute massive network of people that she knows. Within a day, my mom hired a lawyer to fight the case, and they immediately asked to change the courtroom from the small court in our town to one of the large courts a couple of towns away. The logic was that if she fought the case in our town, my mom would be at a disadvantage since her case was essentially going against our town's beloved police force. But by putting it in a different town, the playing field would be even. Additionally, while my mom had worked from home in her own business, Karen had a full-time job in town, so going to court in a different town would be a huge pain in the ass for her. The lawyer had prepared a huge amount of evidence against Karen that there was no way she could actually win the case from, no matter what. Come to the court date, Karen never showed up, so the case was thrown out. That was a pretty nice win, but what came after was even better. Since my mother and sister have a lot of friends in town, the story of Karen and Sam doing this shady bullcrap got out really fast. Soon half the town had heard about it, and suddenly Karen and Sam went from two favorites in the town, because of Sam's rep, to two of the most underhanded and nasty people. Sam stopped getting invited to school assemblies, and Karen was ostracized in her kid's school PTA. Anthony also ended up talking to the police chief in private, and we found out that Sam was not officially punished. He was severely reprimanded by the chief. Too long didn't read? A woman cut off my mom, damaged her car, and had her cop boyfriend try to cover it up. My mom fought back and got one of those cops punished, and the woman didn't get anything out of it. The woman filed a complaint just before the statute of limitations, so my mom couldn't counter it. My mom decided to take it to court, had the case thrown out because the woman never showed up, and then proceeded to tell a bunch of people in the town about what happened. Soon, after the town found out about now, both the woman and her boyfriend are no longer nearly as welcomed or nearly as warm in town. Edit. Holy crap, I haven't checked my Reddit in a couple of days, and I honestly didn't expect this to blow up so much. For those of you who are commenting it is fake, you can feel free to believe what you like. I've read a lot of fake stories on Reddit as well, so I don't blame you for finding this admittedly insane story as unbelievable. I might have gotten some of the smaller details wrong because, like I said, this story was a couple of years old, and I was away at university when most of it went down, but in general, the story as a whole is true. Either way, thanks for reading it, whether you'll believe it or not. This person really sucks at doing too long didn't read, huh? And that brings us to the end of today's r/ProRevenge. Did you like it? Make sure to check out some of our other stuff and even subscribe. As always, my name's Ryan from Askreddit Tells, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.